Welcome to episode 4 of the Jobcast, the employment support team's new podcast aimed at helping you to build the skills and confidence to find work. I'm Francesca.
And I'm Dan. This month we're joined by Alice, Sam and Aaron from Steps to Wellbeing.
Hello, my name's Sam Gould. I'm an employment advisor at Steps to Wellbeing.
I'm Aaron. I'm also an employment advisor here at Steps to Wellbeing.
And I'm Alice, and I am a psychological wellbeing practitioner at Steps to Wellbeing, which is difficult to say all in one breath. But yeah, basically what that is so where Aaron and Sam provide some employment support to the people working with our service, I provide sort of what's called guided self-help, so CBT-led support to people who are also managing sort of mental health conditions like depression or anxiety. So Steps to Wellbeing as a service, it's an NHS service, it's a free service and it's a primary care service. So you can access it either just by going via your GP, but you can also access it yourself just by signing up for an assessment on our website or giving us a call. And what we do is we assess people who are maybe struggling with all kinds of mental health issues. And we offer support where we can to those people suffering from depression or anxiety related disorders, usually CBT, but we do also offer counselling. And we offer extra services like the employment support team that Aaron and Sam do that they can talk a bit about.
So as employment advisors, what me and Sam do is work with people. So we're the more non-clinical side of Steps to Wellbeing essentially, and we sort of support people that are either on the waiting list for therapy, so the psychological therapy side of things, or currently in therapy. And we help resolve any sort of workplace issues, employment issues or unemployment issues that someone could be having that might be having a knock-on effect in terms of their mental health and well-being essentially. So, you know, work is a huge part of our lives, and if things aren't going well in the workplace, that can have a knock-on effect in terms of, you know, not only our well-being and productivity in the workplace, but also how we feel in our private lives and our personal lives. And so we, you know, anything from employment issues such as workplace disputes, harassment, and feel free to chime in anytime, Sam, because I won't be able to think of them all.
Okay. Things like discrimination maybe,
yeah.
or maybe bullying sometimes at work. But it could be things like wellness at work, how to keep well at work as well.
Yeah, stress as well. And
getting back into work, do you guys do voluntary work as well? Sort of that phase return type stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah, anything like that. Likewise, if someone's, you know, suspended or signed off sick, yeah, like you said, we can help with that return to work process. And if someone's unemployed and they're struggling, you know, to find work or struggling with any part of the application process, we can help with things like CVs, cover letters, applications and mock interviews and stuff when it comes to that sort of point as well.
Cool.
Sounds great. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us this month.
So just sort of putting it out there really, how can work affect your mental health? What do you think?
I think we've learned a lot about that during this COVID situation. Obviously, you know, I think before this, a lot of people, it was more just the workplace stress, the workplace pressure that sort of people thought of with regards to mental health and work. But I think with everything that's been going on with the pandemic and the COVID situation, we're increasingly seeing how we need that sense of purpose and that sense of routine to our days to sort of stay well and stay healthy. And the thing is, because work's such a huge part of our lives, it sort of, and obviously mental health is a huge part of our lives, the two sort of do really sort of intertwine. So if you're struggling with mental health issues at home, it's going to affect your work, which is going to have a knock-on effects in terms of your finances, you know, which is just going to add to the pressure. Whereas equally, if you're struggling with things at work and struggling with workplace pressure or you know, disputes in the workplace, that can, you know, it's difficult to switch off a lot of the time, and we can end up taking that home with us, which again has a knock-on effect in terms of our mental health. So they sort of feed into each other. So I think it's really important to address, you know, if you're going to address mental health and you're having difficulties with your employment situation, it's important to address both, because like I said, they really do feed into one another.
Just as a bit of a follow-up question.
And I think
Sorry, go on, Alice.
I was just going to say, I might add to that and just sort of say, well, actually work can be really beneficial for our mental health as well. And that's what you were saying earlier. And it's like, it gives us that structure and that routine. And often what people are finding is that if they've been furloughed, if they've been sort of sadly out of a job for a while because of the pandemic, actually that itself can have a huge impact on our mental health. Just having a lot of time think, to get lost of our own, and that sense of that structure and that sense of meaning that work can give our day-to-day lives.
Yeah,
So not all of us do jobs that, you know, we love, but most of us will find some daily satisfaction in the work that we do day to day.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's easy if you're, you know, unemployed and you wake up in the morning. It's easy to sort of slip into that mindset. Well, you know, I've not got to get up. I've not got to be at work for a certain time, so I may as well just stay in bed another hour, or stay in bed another hour. And before you know it, you're in one of those sort of pits where, oh, well, what's the point of getting out of bed in the morning? You know, because I don't have that sense of purpose. But yeah, like Alice said, it can be really, really conducive to positive mental health and well-being as well. If you know, if you enjoy your work and if things are going well at work, and you have that, you know, that community and that support network of people around you.
Yeah, definitely. I guess it also allows you to, so what I was going to say, kind of Alice picked up on actually, so we're obviously on the right sort of the same wavelength, but I guess from our point of view, what we see with some of our clients is that they say that they need to find work because it helps to improve their mental health. And it's also, it's about kind of expanding your network of people that you talk to, or actually having people to talk to sometimes, I think has more effect on people's mental health than any of us really give it credit for, really. But so yeah, so Alice, you answered my question without me even asking it.
I'm just that good. But I think you're right though, because it's not just about having those deep, meaningful conversations with close friends. That day-to-day sort of small talk social interaction is also really important. That variety of social interaction every day, and work can be just a really, really important source of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. So if someone was to be having a problem at work and it was having an impact on their mental health, what kind of stuff can they do? What support could they get to help with that?
I think perhaps the important thing to do is talk to somebody about it.
Yeah.
So within your work, it could be a colleague, it could be your manager, it could be someone from human resources, it could be someone from occupational health, or it could be outside of work. It could be by talking to us at Steps to Wellbeing. So the key thing is to talk to somebody about it, really.
Yeah, I think a lot of mental health issues that are caused by work can be mitigated with conversations. Usually, you know, having that, you know, being transparent with your manager, having that conversation with HR, and letting them know what's going on with regards to the things you're struggling with at work. And you know, a lot of people don't realise that an employer's got a duty of care in the workplace to ensure the well-being of their employees. So well, they can't do that if they don't know, you know, that you're struggling. So I think communication is a large part of dealing with those, you know, mental health and stuff in the workplace. Absolutely.
I guess that really kind of
pushes
the phrase of it's okay to not be okay. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Those conversations.
And once you start having those conversations, actually you'll be surprised what comes out of them and who else might be struggling as well in the workplace. And I think it's really important for managers as well to remember that what they're doing in terms of sort of supporting their own mental health is modelling that for their teams as well, because it flows down.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's good. Thank you. So I guess we've kind of sort of talked about, you know, talking and the importance of talking, but what would your top tips be for keeping mentally healthy at work?
So I think it's really important to have good supervision, regular supervision. If you can have that time with your manager, maybe once a week, maybe once a fortnight, you can sit down with your manager and discuss your workload, discuss the issues you're facing at work, and they can have, you know, they can ask questions about how you're doing and how well you think you're performing. I think supervision time is really important, and something that I think we often recommend, which sometimes is lacking within people's workplaces.
I also think that it's so important to be, this is a slightly broader approach to the answer, I think, than that, but it's really thinking about what that balance is that you've got going on in your life as well. What boundaries are you putting on around work? So I think it's very, very easy, especially when we're all working from home, as I think we all in this group are doing at least some of, is to let it slide over into the evening, into our leisure time, into times that we'd normally be spending with our families or going out, and actually making sure that we've got more than just work going on in our lives, that we've got that balance there is really, really key. So there's something that there's an exercise I sometimes do with people, which is called the 9 pillars. And it's imagining that you're in a room where the ceiling is supported by just one pillar. And that pillar is, say, your work life. If something happens to that one pillar, there is nothing else holding up the ceiling. If you've only got work going on, then if anything happens at work, if work starts getting stressful, if something goes wrong, if there's issues coming up, you've got very little else going on in your life to keep you going. What you want to think about is actually 9 different pillars that you can keep going. There's your family, there's your recreation that you do, there's your maybe sense of community, there's your physical health. There's all these different areas that we've got to be thinking about in terms of what's actually keeping us supported, what's keeping us going. And it means we're so much less vulnerable when something does go wrong in one of those areas. So if issues are coming up at work, we're so much better equipped to deal with them if we've made sure to keep that balance going in our lives. So I think that's a bit of a broader tip there. That's probably the main thing I'd be thinking about.
The one thing I would just suggest as well is knowing your limits and not spreading yourself too thin when you are at work. I think, a lot of people want to do as the best they can, which is fantastic. But I think a lot of the time people can bite off more than they can chew, and then before you know it, it's a snowball effect. You've got more work, more pressure, which gives makes you less productive, which gives you more work. And it's almost like, just know your limits. Don't spread yourself too thin, and do the best you can. Essentially, I think people need to give themselves more credit when they're at work and in their job.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just doing some reflection really. So I am notoriously one of those people that's always busy. I'm literally bouncing from one thing to another. Me being late for this appointment is just a prime example. Lots of people, when I did my 360 feedback for my apprenticeship, lots of people said that actually they felt that maybe I was too busy, whereas actually I know myself. So I guess it's about knowing yourself, isn't it, and knowing where that limit is. So I work to a really high stress sort of threshold. There's a very, very fine line between me being really stressed and me working at my optimum. And that's just where I work, and actually I thrive off that, and that's where people get best results from me. But it's about having that insight to know actually I've taken that step a little bit too far over, and I am now working in that sort of stress mode rather than just high productivity. But it's about knowing yourself, isn't it? And it's also about having those conversations like we've talked about. I mean, I'm very lucky in the fact that we've got a really lovely team around us. I've got a very supportive manager and things. So with that communication, that helps. But yeah, I guess I just wanted to add that we all have different levels, don't we, and different kind of thresholds.
Yeah, I agree.
That can fluctuate across one person's life as well. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that conversation aspect, that it's a combination, isn't it, of knowing yourself, knowing your own limits, but also accepting that feedback and hearing what people have to say. I mean, me and Francesca, I like to think we've got a great working relationship, and yeah, I'm glad to agree. I'm very lucky in that sense. But I kind of know my limits and what I perceive to be my own kind of barriers and things. And Francesca can actually challenge me on some of that, and she'll know we've worked together long enough now. She'll know when I'm kind of maybe doing a bit too much, or things are maybe getting a bit on top of me, and that communication is really helpful. So it just comes back to the conversations, doesn't it, and that open relationship. And it can be difficult for not everybody is as lucky as us in having that kind of positive management structure, but it does help. And even if it's not necessarily with a manager, but maybe with a colleague, or even ringing up a helpline or something like that can just be a great starting point, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I think feedback's pretty important as well. I mean, I always like to get feedback from my manager about how well I think I'm doing at my job, and how well she thinks that I'm doing as well. I think it's really important to get regular feedback really with your manager, to let you know that you're doing a good job. I think that's something that we all need.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, that's what drives me a little bit more. I think there's sort of there's different ways of managing people, isn't there, and different sort of forms of communication. And I'm the sort of person that I need things just reinforced. Actually, yeah, you're doing a really great job, or you're definitely on the right path, because otherwise I have that self-doubt, and I have quite a lot of self-doubt naturally. So like I need, and I thrive off having that, you're good to go, keep going. Whereas if I had a manager who I couldn't ask, he won't always naturally share it. Sometimes I do have to ask, am I doing all right? But you know, I know that I'll get the answer. Whereas there are some people who are probably, hopefully, listening to this, and they'll be thinking, actually, do you know what? I haven't got that relationship with my manager, or my manager doesn't even actually ask how I am. And that makes me really sad, and also makes me a little bit worried, because there are lots of managers out there who maybe aren't quite aware of just how important their feedback really is.
Yeah.
And it's quite an easy thing to do, isn't it?
Resilience in the workplace does. Sorry, I think I'm very stuttery on my connection, so I do apologise if I'm inadvertently talking over people.
Don't sound stuttery.
Go for it, Alice.
Okay, I was just saying that resilience in the workplace, it is so important for it to come really from the top down, and to have that be something that's really instigated. I think at Steps to Wellbeing, we've actually thinking of Steps to Wellbeing as a workplace. We're very lucky in that a lot of attention is paid to our own well-being, as well as the well-being of all the clients we're supporting, and that's sadly not always the case, but it does make a massive difference. And I would encourage people to think about, you know, when you're taking care of your mental health, that's actually a really good thing to be doing for the culture in your workplace as well.
Definitely.
There is something as well called a wellness action plan that we recommend to some of our clients, which is a plan which Mind has developed, which talks about different approaches you can take to support your mental well-being, about early warning signs and triggers that might affect you at work, and about the sort of support you need from your manager, and what you can do in stressful situations. So there is a wellness action plan available. So that's something that you can get from the internet.
Yeah, and if you're someone struggling with mental health at work, then that's a really good way to structure those conversations we were talking about earlier with your manager. You know, that being transparent and letting them know what's going on. A wellness action plan is a really, really good way to structure that conversation for people that might be, you know, a little bit ambivalent about bringing it up with their management.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know that I've used it for as a tool to enable staff and people looking for work as well, to just really think about how they want to communicate their own mental health, and how they almost want to have those conversations initiated with them. And it's been really useful and very insightful as well. And actually, as a manager, I felt quite privileged almost to be working with someone on a document that was very personal to them. So yeah, it's definitely a really good tool. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
It is, with that in mind, actually, it is really good for employers as well, because you know, you do unfortunately get those companies that aren't really, not necessarily privy to the mental health side of things, but you know, maybe just not as aware of the prevalence, you know, as aware of its prevalence in the workplace. So that can be a really good way for, you know, managers and employers to sort of start to expand their horizons and realize, okay, these, you know, these are things that we have to have, you know, measures in place for, to support people when this stuff happens. So yeah, they can be really, really beneficial for employers as well, those wellness action plans.
Cool. Yeah, we're talking about a lot of quite cool resources, really helpful resources. So what I'll make sure we do is we'll put links to all of this in the descriptions that we've got. So if there is anything that anyone listening would like to find out more about, it should all be in the description for you. So yeah, and I think those conversations and you know, asking for that support is so important. I think sometimes people might be a little bit worried about starting those conversations and things like that. And
yeah,
you know, it's people might worry about their rights, and they might not want to say that they're struggling because they worry it might impact them negatively. So how can people kind of find out about actually their rights around mental health at work, and actually seeing that that's not the case?
I suppose the short answer is there's a really good website run by ACAS, who are employment experts in everything really, and they list pretty much all your rights at work, what you're entitled to, be that national minimum wage, be it statutory sick pay, be it maternity or paternity rights, annual leave. There's a whole wealth of information on the ACAS website, and these are rights that obviously, you know, have developed over time to become laws and are there to benefit all our lives. So it's something that we refer to ourselves, the ACAS website, a lot, and encourage other people to look at as well, because a lot of people don't know they're entitled to certain things, and it can make a real difference to their lives.
Yeah, ACAS and Citizens Advice Bureau as well. They're very useful when it comes to employment advice and employment law and things of that nature as well.
Definitely. I have to say we're very lucky. We work very closely with Citizens Advice and things. So yeah, we have a shared working space when we're all allowed to start working face to face again and being out of our homes. And we'll be sharing space. So I mean, kind of talking about working from home, I think certainly, you know, reflecting back a year ago, we were all sent to work from home, and I kind of very naively, I think, thought, oh, it'll only be for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months at the max. And a year down the line, we're still sat here. I've never been so happy to have my own study, which, you know, at the time, when it was created and things for me, it was just to help me with my study. Who'd have thought that I'd literally be spending all of my work hours in here as well? But, you know, it's been a big change for lots of people. And I know that there are still lots of people who aren't able to do their work from home, and they are having to go into the workplace and things. But thinking about working from home, I mean, I guess we've all got lots of different techniques, and we've had a year to try lots of things out. But have you got any sort of top tips on how we can work from home effectively?
I think a good thing to have, if you've got a study, if you've got a dedicated workspace, that's really important. You know, I've come across clients who've had to work from very difficult situations, working on settees and things like that, which can be really difficult. So if you can get a desk, if you can get a place to work which is perhaps a little bit separate from where you have your usual living space, that is fantastic, and that will really help you. So that's one thing. Another thing could be give yourself regular breaks. You know, it's quite easy to be drawn into forgetting about going for breaks, but it's important to get up and have breaks and have proper lunch breaks and all of those things. I think if you can literally go out of your house and go for a walk and then start work and then go for walks at lunchtime and things like that, all of that will make a real big difference as well.
Yeah, and just to echo what Sam said there with regards to the having a dedicated workspace, I was one of those people that didn't, unfortunately, for the first, I think it was the first lockdown or the first 1.5 lockdowns, and yeah, it's just a game changer when you have a space to wake up and go to in the morning as if you are starting work as you would be in the office, as opposed to sort of just sort of wandering about, because then it gets to a point where almost every room, you know, if you're just working from any old room you can work from, you know, you come to associate all of your personal space then with work as well, and it makes it so much more difficult to switch off when you have finished and you have logged off. So yeah, I definitely agree with that in terms of having that dedicated work environment.
I think the thing I might add to that, as you said, like there's some people in situations where that's just not possible.
Yeah.
And even then, I'd have a think about what you're doing to try and mitigate the impact of that. So, for example, you know, the one thing we'd always advise is don't work from your bed, because it can really affect your sleep if you're associating the place you sleep with your work. If you have to, if it's literally the only space available to you, try and work at a different side of your bed, a different end of your bed. It's putting those little changes in place that is just helping with a little bit of a change in situation, a change in that boundary wherever you can. So sometimes it's having to be a bit creative about what that looks like, but then trying to be a bit consistent with whatever that is. So, you know, if you were sort of going switching ends of bed, working from the bottom of the bed and just doing that when you got up in the morning, that's still giving you a little bit of separation between work mode, sleep mode. So it is really, really tough. I mean, I'm quite lucky in that I've got a private space where I can work from home. And I can see that you've got this lovely study I can see in the background there. But, you know, and that is ideal. And even then, you know, sometimes it's really tough. Sometimes I just want the commute into the office, or I just want to be able to speak to colleagues. Or, you know, there's the joy of getting dressed for work, which is an underestimated joy, I realised this year.
That's what I was just going to say as well,
yeah,
actually. Don't work in your pajamas.
Yeah.
Don't
Get
work
up,
in your
brush your
pajamas.
teeth, get dressed like you go into the office. It's going to change everything, because if you're rolling out of bed,
if you've noticed you're struggling with your sleep, well, I was just going to say, if you've noticed you're struggling with your sleep while working from home, that is something really to be thinking about. It's how separate am I keeping sleep and work?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I'm one of the worst. I mean, I have suffer with insomnia anyway, but I have to say working from home, even though, I do have a commute to my study. I have about 20 paces commute, so I physically leave the house, which, you know, I used to take the mickey out of, but actually those 20 steps are quite important, and they give me the opportunity to have some fresh air. I mean, I'm very lucky. I get to so you guys who can see me on this recording, I can see loads of birds flying in and out, because my next door neighbour's got loads of birds, like nesting boxes and things. So there's lots of birds flying around. So, you know, I can look out and I get to see nice sort of things. And, you know, when we're based in the Civic, it's not always that nice. You know, sometimes just have brick wall to look at. But I think for me, I've had to enforce a change in my routine. To make myself do a little bit more exercise, because I used to walk around the Civic Centre, and I used to walk down the high street. I used to walk everywhere in town. If we had a meeting, I'd walk there, and usually in quite big heels and quite fast, because I'm notoriously late for everything. But, you know, that I didn't realise, I totally underestimated just how much energy and how much exercise I used to actually get. I used to regularly hit, you know, 25,000 steps without really making an effort. And now I'm lucky if I didn't take my dog out for a walk and do all the, you know, just running around the house, I'd probably only do about 300 steps a day, and that's insane. So I mean, I've started to do some yoga. I go out for a few more walks. There's one walking meeting that I have every week with a colleague. So we just go out and we talk on the phone. So they're in Southampton, I'm not, and we go for a walk and we just talk. Sometimes it's work stuff, sometimes it's not, but it's about having a bit of a catch up, but being outside and just burning off some excess energy, I guess.
I think exercise is really important, and in some ways working from home can offer us more opportunities to exercise. So, you know, in the lunch break we might have a time to go for a run or whatever. So it's really important to keep good exercise going.
Definitely.
And you can sort of kill two birds with one stone with regards to, you know, going for a walk after work, because, you know, not only are you going to get that exercise in, but you're going to associate that walk after work with switching off from work. You know, it's like that walk back from the office to home that gives you that chance to sort of reset and get into, you know, home mode, so to speak. So yeah, going for a 10-15 minute walk after you've, you know, logged off your laptop or clocked off, that can just help you switch off and get that exercise in as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing, actually. It's something that I certainly took that for granted as well, the kind of the amount of distance I would cover every day. But actually that wasn't just the exercise, but actually going from one client meeting and then you'd be on a bus journey or walking to the next one. You've got time to reflect and actually move on from that and, you know, clear your thoughts. You've finished that one, now you're on this one. And I think sometimes in the world of Teams and Zoom, when we're literally able to just bounce from one meeting to another, that can sometimes have a bit of an impact as well. So that's something I've found is quite good, is just having those gaps in between meetings. That can be really helpful.
I was actually,
Sorry,
I actually saw a story today. Oh, sorry. I saw a story today where the CEO of Citigroup has instigated Zoom-free Fridays because everyone was suffering so much from Zoom fatigue. Because it can just be non-stop, can't it?
Yeah.
In one meeting and out the other. So yeah, I'm a big fan of just sometimes stepping back a little bit from the screen, or just finding that little bit, those moments of rest and restoration throughout the day.
Definitely, some old-fashioned just telephone calls. Who'd have thought I'd miss those? But I mean, part of my dissertation that I'm writing is kind of really focusing on our team and kind of looking at post sort of COVID plans and things. And part of the research that I've done has been around sort of staff wellbeing and engagement, and also resilience. And so a lot of the research and things that I've done, kind of, you know, you've said everything, you've said all of the things that they've been sort of just highlighting, and the fact that, you know, Zoom fatigue is massive, but also kind of going forward with the hybrid working, which is certainly, you know, the way that I think we're going to go as a team. So we'll be expected to do some in-house and then some working from home. And I think that we're going to have to find a new balance and almost have some new unspoken rules around, you know, either you have an online digital meeting or you have a physical meeting, but you don't have some people dialing in and some people in the room, because then that's disadvantaging people. And I think there's the whole work culture and balance and things. I think we're going to have a good couple of years of trying to sort of finesse it all again and get it working for everybody. And it is, I can't remember who mentioned it earlier, but you know, working sort of in the right working environment, and how a lot of the research was around how employers just assumed that staff had everything in place so that they could work from home. And you know, if you sort of take employers, you know, generally, they might have given their staff a laptop and a mobile phone to work, but what, you know, how do they know that they've definitely got Wi-Fi? How do they know they've got phone reception? You know, and also working in environments, and we had all the kids home and things, trying to balance homeschooling, work, life, your mental health and everything else. I mean, it was a constant sort of balancing act, really. But making an assumption that employees had the right space to sit and do their job effectively. I think that's, I know that we went into lockdown and it was very quick and no one saw it coming. But I do think that now going forward, if employers are going to be expecting employees to work from home, then they need to almost do it on a case-by-case basis and have those conversations with people about, right, okay, how practical is it for you to work from home? Have you got everything you need? Have you got things that you need to make it easier, more comfortable, safe even? You know, working on beds and things. I mean, if you think about DSE assessments, like they'd have kittens, wouldn't they? Really not, you know, the way that we should be sitting. But Alice, as you pointed out, not everybody has the luxury of sort of having a space that they can create a spot, you know, an office or just their specific sort of workstation. And I think that there's lots of things that need to be taken into consideration, but I think a lot of it is around education as well. And I think within that, maybe we need to try and push a bit more education to employers around well-being and resilience, and having just those conversations. How are you today? Are you okay? They're conversations that we'd have in the kitchen whilst we're making a coffee. And working from home, there's no one to answer or no one to ask. So, you know, it's about kind of making sure that we just remind people that those conversations are just as important.
Yeah, and I think so with regards to the way we do things, we've sort of set up things like WhatsApp groups or you know, ways to just stay in touch with colleagues on a casual basis. So, you know, you can use Microsoft Teams for your work chat and you can discuss, you know, whatever you want to discuss with regards to what you would be doing in the office, but then have another channel where you can chat with your colleagues about stuff completely unrelated to work, so you can still have that sort of, like you said, the chit chat you would be having in the office, without the sort of underlying thing that always it's got to be work talk, because we need that normal social interaction, and we would largely get that at work. So I think there's good options like WhatsApp and other sort of methods to use for that.
Definitely.
I also think that interaction is really good as well if you're looking for work. I think it's a pretty isolating process in normal times, but then when everyone's in lockdown, I think you can feel very kind of lonely actually if you're looking for work, and particularly if you're finding it quite difficult. So it's something we encourage a lot of our clients is building that network of support, and even if it's just virtual, but just having someone, whether it's an employment officer or a work coach or just a random friend or whatever, but just someone that you can sort of discuss, say, this is how it's going well, it's not going so well, what ideas. And I think that's a really important part as well of when you're actually looking for work.
Definitely. That kind of makes me think about, so we've got 2 wellbeing champions within our team, and each week they'll either send out a newsletter or they'll sort of speak at one of our team meetings and things. And one of them was saying that they set us little challenges each week, and one of the challenges was about kind of just reaching out and talking to somebody that you maybe haven't spoken to in a while. So kind of thinking about what Dan was saying. So, anyone who is looking for work, who's maybe feeling a little bit isolated and things, reach out to somebody that maybe you haven't spoken in a couple of weeks, and not for any other reason other than to just say hi and just check in on people, because it will probably make their day as well, because who knows, they might be feeling exactly the same. So the power of talk.
I know a lot of people have anxiety about reaching out in that way. I think there can be a lot of like what if thoughts, or a lot of worry that gets in the way there.
Yeah.
And actually the more you get used to doing that, the easier it gets. And I'd say that's sort of a really good general rule to bear in mind, that actually there's a lot of things that maybe we've not done for a while and they now feel quite intimidating. I think there's probably a lot of people quite anxious about going back into the office just because actually they've not been there for a while. And that's really, really normal. Actually, anything where we've not done it for a while, our brain starts getting nervous about it, start getting that anxiety. But it's about building up to that slowly and breaking it down for ourselves.
Yeah, little steps, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I guess maybe if somebody didn't want to reach out to someone that they haven't spoken to in a while on the phone, then actually the next time they go out and buy a loaf of bread, just to smile, not that they can see you because you'll have a mask on, but you can see, because you can see in their eyes, can't you, when someone's smiling. But to just smile and say hello and have a nice day. I mean, not so long ago, a lady who's working in our local petrol station, bless her, was clearly having a very bad day. The machine crashed. The guy that she was trying to serve was getting very angry and frustrated. He was clearly in a massive rush, and had forgotten his manners. And she was really, really stressed. So I picked up a chocolate bar and paid for it, and then just gave it to her and said, I think you need this morning, and then just left. Because, sometimes it's just about having conversations and doing something nice. And, that's probably something that I really wish I'd done, but it felt like the right thing to do at the time. But I think the more we get used to just starting to reach out and speak to people, because you're right, we haven't seen people, we've not been allowed to, have we? So I'd just say, start with little things and kind things. We just need to be not kind to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that example is so lovely that you've described there. And you're saying it's a little thing, but that probably made her day. She probably still thinks about that, because I would.
Little things like that.
I don't know, I think I was just this very strange woman who just gave her, she probably doesn't like chocolate, but it just felt, I don't know, at the time it just felt like the right thing. Have a bar.
No, those little acts of care, they make a massive difference. They have a much bigger impact. And I think, and it has an impact on you too. It's something that I assume you feel quite good about having done.
And
if not, you certainly should.
Yeah, definitely. I'm all for just just being kind. Life's hard enough, isn't it? So actually, if we can just bring smiles to other people's faces in the day, then that's all good.
And we're all in the same boat at the end of the day. You know, there's been a stressful year for, well, everyone on Earth, essentially. So I guess it's just one of those things where, yeah, just be good to each other and just understand we're all in the same boat at the end of the day.
Kind to each other, be kind to ourselves.
It's one of the very, very few good things to come out of the pandemic, isn't it? Is actually it's brought out a lot of good in a lot of people, which is nice, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we've been talking a lot about working from home, working from the office, that kind of thing. What do we prefer? What's our favourite? Do we prefer home or the office?
I think I probably prefer a bit of both, and I like I don't have to travel too far to come into the office, so it's not a massive commute. So that's okay for me. But I've really enjoyed aspects of working from home. Just it's a different environment, it's a different setting. It's been kind of liberating in some ways. So I'm hoping that I'll have the choice in the future that I can do a bit of both in some ways.
Yeah, me too. I think first lockdown I was like, oh, this is fantastic. Second lockdown I was thinking, get me out of here, I'm going stir crazy. Third lockdown I was sort of, okay, I'm used to this now, I'm sort of getting in the groove of things. But I think, like Sam said, I think a balance is best, because all of that stuff we've been speaking about today with regards to the social interaction and that the networking side of things, you need that, and it's just not the same from home. So I definitely think not a 50-50 split, but 2-3 days in the office, then 2-3 days working from home is best for me, I reckon.
I'd agree with that. I mean, I quite like where I am now, where going into the office feels like a genuine treat. Like I get quite excited. I don't think I'll be able to maintain that long term, but it's nice to have a little bit of both, and it's going to be down to it. And as you said, I think it's a case by case thing. Everybody's situation is going to be a bit different. I think a lot of people will come down on a bit of a mix of both, because there's been some real benefits to working from home. Just the time that's saved, money that's saved. There's definitely a noticeable financial impact. But there is also just so much benefit to going into the office, having that structure and seeing colleagues and having that face-to-face interaction, which is just lovely. So yeah, I'm like everyone else, a bit of both.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm gonna come down on your side. It's definitely a bit of both for me. I think it would be fair to say that I probably don't really like my own company that much, so I do thrive.
That's worrying.
I really get a lot of my my drive and my motivation, I guess, from my surroundings, and a lot of that is people, and I really I'm a very social person, sort of in the fact that I like the buzz and the movement around me. However, what I haven't missed is having that all go on around me when I'm trying to do things like budgets or trying to write reports, and people just want 5 minutes of my time. Well, it's never just 5 minutes, and then it's 5 minutes for this person, 5 minutes for that person, and then my whole day goes by and I just think I've still not managed to do the one thing that I needed to do. So in that respect, I think I am looking forward to being able to legitimately say, actually, I need to work from home tomorrow because I've got to do X, Y, and Z, and knowing that time's a lot more protected, and I don't have to go hiding somewhere in the Civic, which it has been known. I've literally hidden in rooms so that I can't be found, so that I can just get on and do what I need to do. So to be able to do that at home would be wonderful, but I do miss not being around the team, and I miss not. I think for me as a manager, I find it really hard in the fact that, when you are doing Zoom meetings and stuff, that you see like the chest up, and that's fine, but then you don't see lots of people's mannerisms, so you can't really get a true indication as to whether or not they're having a bad day or whether they're having a really good day. And for me, I worry about my team. I want everybody to be well and be okay, and so if I can't see that, I find that difficult. So it would be nice to just once in a while be able to just actually see people and just have a chat and be able to see everybody's body language rather than just sort of facial expressions, really.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And you know, I've loved working from home. I think it's been great. You know, I feel like I've been more productive.
Mm.
I've saved money on commuting. I've saved money on buying lunch and things like that. Um, it's been certainly helpful for me because I've moved house during the lockdown as well, so that's been useful. Having that little bit of extra time that I would have been commuting, I can be doing a bit of painting or whatever. But I must say, I have really missed seeing clients, and I cannot wait to be able to meet clients in person again. Because I've had people that I've been working with throughout the lockdown, and I don't even know what they look like, and it's that's bizarre. So yeah, just being able to just work with people in that old way again of seeing people and gauging how they're feeling about, you know, if you're suggesting things to them and they might be saying yes, but their body language might be saying something different, and it's impossible to get that over the phone or over Zoom even. So yeah, I can't wait. I think a mixture is going to be the best way forward.
Definitely. So I guess that kind of brings us to an end of today's session. So can I say thank you to all three of you for joining us. It's been really great, really insightful to listen to you. So thanks for listening, everybody. Next month, we're going to be joined by our partners on the PATH project, which is a really amazing project, and it's a project that aims to raise awareness of perinatal mental health. I've been lucky enough to be part of this project since its start and its launch. So it's going to be rather special podcast next month, because we're going to be launching our awareness campaign for PATH, and we'll be discussing our role in the project and how we can support parents and families affected by perinatal mental health, but also how we can help employers to support their staff too.
Yeah, so join us next month to find out about that really exciting project. We're also going to have a special podcast as well to mark Southampton's first virtual careers and apprenticeships show. So we're going to be talking to the organisers about that event, and also some employers who are going to be exhibiting. So yeah, a lot of podcast action next month. So as always, don't forget to send us your thoughts and your comments. All of the contact details are over on Access Southampton, and we'll be posting all of the links to everything we've talked about today in the description. So yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you, Steps to Wellbeing, for joining us, and yeah,
you.
we'll
Thank
speak to
you.
you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.